But I do want to start here, if that is okay. And I just want to say to each of you, congratulations. Each of you are a survivor, whether you realize it or not. And I hope this is going to give you some maybe much needed, outside of caffeine and food, encouragement this Thursday afternoon. But you are a survivor of middle school. And we said, consider that quite an accomplishment. I want to have a little fun just on the opening of this. And yes, we, as Beverly already mentioned, we of course work with, middle school age students, but whenever I kind of joke with any size audience that I speak with, it's interesting to see the faces in the audience when I talk, especially when I mention middle school. And for a vast majority of the crowd, it almost instantaneously brings back some pretty tense, difficult memories. And I often like to ask, like, if you had a word that you could fill in the blank, an adjective, now remember, we work with students, so let's keep it PG here. But if you had to use one word to describe middle school, would anyone like to jump in by chance with a first word that comes to mind?
Well, I have a 7th grader and he loves to use the word cringy all the time.
That's brand new. We will, Carolyn, please make a note. Let's add that to our repertoire here. Okay, cringy. What else? I've heard difficult, I've heard challenging, awkward, confusing, weird. I know those lean towards negative negative adjectives. I realize that might not be each of yours experience, but for the vast majority, they were some of the most challenging years in secondary education. And so by this next statement that I'm going to make, I definitely do not want to, I don't want to exaggerate, but I do want to make a point, and I want to say this, that we really believe that if you surround students, now in the world of Loveworks, it happens to be context primarily middle school age student, but fill in the blank with perhaps other students that you work with or your mentor, whether they're elementary aged, high school, you're working with beloved millennials in the workplace. But we're big believers that if you surround students, regardless of age, around the right people, around the right who's, the right men and women, and you provide a great environment for them to be in, that truly anything is possible. And that's what we've had the opportunity to see, over the last, 10 years. That's part of our story. The students that you see here are actual Loveworks students who, it seems like, it's interesting. When you have kids, they say that the days are long, but the years are short. And these students here, Precious, Patrick, and Kyla, it seemed like almost yesterday that they walked through the front doors of our Loveworks campus, our building here in Norman, Oklahoma, the one with the big ball pit behind me. And, walking through the front doors of our campus, not of course having it all together, a sort of innocence just about them, the half crooked smile like I have, but just walking through our campus wearing backpacks. And then a blink of an eye. So if you happen to have kids, it just seems like, they grow up so fast. And now just a few years later, each of these students that you see and more are graduated from high school. They are now tax-paying citizens. They're working full-time. Some are going to school, and they're making a positive impact in the communities that they reside in. And I believe that just gives us a beautiful picture of what is possible and the power of mentoring relationships and the work that each of us have the opportunity to be involved with. So our story goes back about 10 years ago, and it was at that time in about 2010 that we identified a need and a problem, not only in our community, but nationally. And we still believe this today, that the age of middle school represents an age where students are the most at risk, more so than even their younger and older siblings and friends, which doesn't mean that that exempts an elementary school or high school student being free from challenge. But we did identify, oddly enough, that during the years of middle school, that at these very, and I believe that every year is formative in a young child's development, but in particular in middle school, statistics show that they actually have the fewest amounts of positive after school opportunity that is available to them, which makes it a big reason why they would be classified as some of the most at risk. And so myself and others, we were drawn to this need and to this problem. But then it brought up one of our greatest challenges, one of our biggest challenges. And we sat around a table with each other and we asked ourselves the question, why would a student actually want to be in an after school program? Those that sat around the table had not participated in one when we were in school, and there were various reasons why. And so that began a search. And so at that time, we began looking at programs across the state of Oklahoma. And then we actually traveled from West Coast to East Coast looking at other best practices. And we finally attended an event in North Carolina, and it was called the Day of Leadership at an elementary school. And this particular school, they were the very first school to adopt the late Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they asked Stephen if they could if someone in their organization could rewrite a 7 Habits of Highly Effective Kids and use it as a curriculum. And I would say that it was at that particular time that I really believed that the vision became crystal clear at Loveworks, that we would be an organization that would be ones that empower through mentoring relationships, and that we would do whatever we can to give students the opportunity to lead and to give them opportunities to be able to live into their dreams. This is a little dated picture. I don't know, it's been on the screen for a while, but one of the volunteer mentors in the middle is Landry Jones, which is a quarterback at OU, and a few of his teammates. But these were our first initial group of volunteers. And Carolyn, who's going to jump in just a few minutes, one thing to take note is that when we first started Loveworks 10 years ago, and I hope this encourages anyone that watches this that's thinking about perhaps starting something, is that we only had 1 paid staff, and all the work that we did those first couple of years was 100% driven by volunteer mentors. Not only did we want to give every student an opportunity to lead, but we wanted to, and not to make anyone hungry that's watching this, but we wanted to incorporate 2 essential ingredients into the leadership diet of the students that we would be working with and our mentors would be mentoring. And that would be character development, ingredient number 1. And number 2, that would be cultivating competence. So in other words, taking the interest and talent that is inside of each of our students, and to be able to provide rich opportunities for them in a safe place, in a safe laboratory, to be able to experiment, test, feel like they can try something, fail, have it not work out, and have someone that's there by their side to be able to continue to encourage them, as they're really figuring out, their life path and their trajectory. Our organization, while our campus, the one that Carolyn and I are sitting in right now, it's located in Norman, Oklahoma. We've had a chance to work directly with students across our state. Students outside of our state have come to us, but we've also worked directly with students in Ponca City and in Western Heights as well. We've had a chance to work with thousands of students over the years. We've developed now multiple programs, outside of just our after school program. If there's any questions about that and our programming, I know Carolyn would be more than happy to talk about it. But I mentioned that I just wanted to highlight just the results, a few of our successes. We've had multiple defeats, but here are a few of our successes that we just wanted to share with you. And again, each of these different successes, are a result of a volunteer mentor that has invested, his or her time in the life of a student. Loveworks is becoming known for helping kids start actual real businesses. So I'm not sure if each of you know this. I just want to give you the caveat that this is not a sales pitch that I'm asking you to go and buy their product, but I do think it's exciting. Never would I would have imagined when I was an 11-year-old student that going back to my middle school years that, I would have been believed in and given opportunity to start an actual real business. I may have fantasized and had an idea, the proverbial one day when I grow up, I would like to do this. But the two students that you see on your right are part of Real Kitchen Salsa, and that's the name of the business. And this started 4 years ago out of a culinary experiential hands-on learning opportunity. And it's something where we give students an opportunity and we customize an opportunity that's based upon his or her strengths and their interests. And we give them short projects to work on to make a discovery. If this is something that they would like to continue learning, more about, not just at Loveworks, of course, but connecting dots perhaps with other organizations in our community, or of course, helping to make just more sense of just their education and connecting those kind of dots. And one of the students in Real Kitchen Salsa had a dream. And she said, our salsa is pretty good. What would be like one day if our product was sold in a grocery store? Well, little did she realize it's one thing to have an idea, and it's another thing to put in almost 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears, which they did. And on April 1st of 2017, almost 3 years after she made that statement, they sold their first jar of salsa at Homeland Grocery Store on April Fool's Day. And now their product is available in 10 stores across the metro area. And they just finalized their newest recipe, which is a shelf-stable recipe, which the students are hopeful now that they would be able to go statewide and hopefully even see this product sold outside of Oklahoma. The company on your left, officially, it's called Real Tech. But middle school students, they always have ideas, and they call themselves Wristworld. And what Wristworld is, they started dreaming a couple years ago about what would it be like if they created a Silicon Valley tech startup here in Oklahoma. We always say this, that, our students are the biggest dreamers, and they make us better, in our profession. And that's what they did. And they've had the opportunity. What it is it's a wristband. It's a video game that you wear on your wrist. If you have kids, if you're watching this, you may roll your eyes, and the last thing you're thinking about right now is the last thing that my kid needs is another video game. But this one is STEAM based, and it's educational. And it also, so they refreshed the slap bracelets. And I'm dating myself here, that I used to wear a few years ago, or 20 years ago in the 80s. And they use augmented reality technology. And it's just a product that they launched last October in over 60 stores in Oklahoma. And they just signed a licensing agreement with a company in Japan called Krypton. And they licensed a character. She's called a Vocaloid, and her name is Hatsune Miku. And they're getting ready to unveil her in just a couple of weeks, and hoping that that will take the product to a national, to an international level. The other area of success that I would like to just talk about, and it's also a work in progress, and we call it our career and our business pathways for students. One of the most frequently asked questions that we get at Loveworks is that what happens after a student has the type of experience that they do at Loveworks, they're promoted into high school, where do they go from there? Well, under the business and career pathways, we had a fortunate opportunity when we were getting ready to work with our first group of freshmen entering into high school. We launched a Chick-fil-A Leadership Academy. And it's our vision that we're going to help to create additional steps on this staircase. We're working on a couple of companies that are very interested in the first quarter of 2021. And we're hoping to identify others that would like to collaborate with Loveworks that could help with early job training and helping to develop leadership skills that we're going to be able to see these students, once they graduate high school, be able to jump right into and be ready to jump into the workforce. Out of 143 so far of our alumni that have graduated from Loveworks, 90% of them will say that they are now continuing, that they've gained leadership skills from Loveworks, and that they're continuing right now to their work in the workplace, or they're continuing in their education. As I mentioned earlier, we have a statement at Loveworks that says that mentoring moments last a lifetime. And while the stories of a startup company can be exciting in career pathways, I love the story of a single individual student that has been impacted. And I can't think of anyone else to talk about than Kyla. And Carolyn's going to jump in, who's had a chance to serve as one of Kyla's mentors, and talk just a little bit about the life changes she's experienced.
So I'd love to tell you a little bit about Kyla. And right now she is a sophomore in college, but I actually got to meet Kyla when she was in 6th grade. And you can almost just imagine that quintessential hyperactive student. It could have been one of your own kids. Maybe you knew you had a child that was a friend, but she was very, very very energetic, but she didn't really have a place for that energy to go. And so it kind of spilled out. And one of the big things that happened when she was in 6th grade, and Kyle was in our after school program, was that she learned about one of her passions, and a way to channel that energy, and it was through service. She found out she loved helping people, and so like any opportunity, if it was like, oh, there's a chance to stack chairs, there's a chance to sharpen pencils, there's a chance to literally just open the door, she would be running to go and do that. And so we saw this student in 6th grade. She was pretty distracted, lots of energy, you could definitely call her hyper, finally finding some sort of passion. And it was really interesting because it wasn't until 8th grade that at Loveworks, we ask, what's your passion? What's your dream? And I remember Kyla saying, I don't know what I want to be yet, when I'm older, and I don't really know what my passion is, but I know that I want to help people. And it was like, Kyla, you figured it out, you've already figured it out. And from there, so you saw a huge transformation in Kyla when she discovered that. And in fact, in her 8th grade year, she went from that student who, maybe was a little too hyperactive to actually winning an award at her school for service. And so was presented that award, to then being in 9th grade. She was a part of our Chick-fil-A Leader Academy program. She found a job through volunteer mentors here at Loveworks, found a connection, and so started working through there. And then it was a huge surprise when we saw this. We knew Kyla has a huge heart, but just sharing a little bit about her and her even home life, they're not a well-off family. And so when we saw a donation come in, a sizable donation come in, and it said Kyla Barrett next to it, and she's 18 years old. She's trying to save for a car right now. And she makes a big donation to Loveworks. It was, Michael, I think you said this, like you had to check it a few times. Is this actually where this donation is coming from? And I think it's a testament to show just the heart that's being cultivated in our Loveworks students, that it is that of a leader that is not self-serving, but one that wants to serve others and to give back. And so Kyla's story is just incredible, and just seeing the way that she has continued to invest back into Loveworks. She was coordinating one of our programs here called Raising Little Leaders, working with students from preschool age to age 9, and so leading a group of young leaders there. And so it's just, I don't know where Kyla's story is going to continue going, but I know that she's going to fulfill that 8th grader's dream of maybe I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to help people. And so really cool.
Carolyn, thanks for sharing that. I asked Kyla, I'm working on a development project right now, and Kyla's now one of our monthly recurring donors and gives back to Loveworks. And I just asked her, why she gives. And she said, how could I not give, to an organization that has helped me as much as they have, and that believes in the big dreams of students. And so while not perfect, we're a work in progress. The number one comment that we hear from professionals, regardless of success, after they learn about Loveworks, is that they wish, something like this had existed when they were in school. And I really believe that they see themselves in the shoes of the students that we work with, and realize, that perhaps some of the choices, may have been different if they would have had the opportunity to rub shoulders and work alongside a Carolyn and a host of our volunteer mentors. And so in our inception, 100% of our students were referred to by counselors at our public schools, which is still the case today. Carolyn does a phenomenal job in just really cultivating the relationship as much as she can with counselors and with educators, and making them aware of just what's happening here at Loveworks and the opportunities that are available. I would say, though, we have evolved now into why we still actively recruit when there are opportunities, in our community. I would say that we're a word of mouth now, at a place of word of mouth where, friends do tell their friends, just about Loveworks. And we hear from a lot of our families and a lot of parents, if they, of course, are acquaintances with someone, and they meet someone who happens to have a student that will be starting or is in middle school, oftentimes one of the first things that they'll suggest is, if so-and-so does not have something going on, you might want to check out Loveworks to be a part of their organization. Because of COVID, one of the pivots we've made, and we're definitely not the only ones, I'm sure each of you have made this pivot, but is the digital world, and so we would say that, we see our future as being phygital, and we don't see that changing. So phygital meaning that we'll continue to work with students physically in person when we can, and with the amount of students that our city would allow. But then also to now the digital, really does give us an opportunity, hopefully, to be able to really expand just the influence, hopefully be able to get the message of leadership into as many homes and even schools as we possibly can.